Well, then, as a last piece here, I had just found some quotes that I thought were interesting. Some from you, and I think one from Greenleaf. And I thought maybe I could just read the quotes and invite you to share either any sort of elaboration that you might care to make, or perhaps something about the origin of it. These were ideas that seemed to me to be both pithy and meaningful, and it's just kind of a way to, an open-ended way to let you share your thoughts if you have them. If you don't,
sure,
we'll just move on. Okay. You wrote in a theory of governing the public's business. The owner-representative role of the board is the source of both board authority and board obligation for servant leadership. Could you say more about that?
Yes, that was published in the Public Management Review, I think, in the United Kingdom, I think, originally, and then it got repeated in John Carver on Board Leadership. Yeah, it's like saying, look, the fact that the board, if you drew an organizational chart with this, the board sits directly between the owners and the operational organization. So it sits right on the line between those two. It is an owner representative in one way or another. So that in that role, it's accountable for everything that happens below it in that chart, and it's accountable to everything that's above it, i.e. the owners. So that the fact that it's in that spot sets up the obligation, not just the choice, but the obligation to be a servant leader because of that relationship to owners to begin with, but also the relationship to CEO in a very different sort of way, but to the CEO as well. So that's what was meant by that. It's like in the case of where that was published, it was talking about, it's like you say, city councils or county commissions or that kind of role. And the fact that it's in that spot, it is fully accountable then for what happens under it. And its relationship with owners is not only the relationship of listening to them and condensing their various points of view, which are so discrepant one from another very often, but also of helping them to be better owners. You can hear a little reverberation of Greenleaf in that, can't you? Helping them to be better owners. It's like, can a school board or a city council help people understand how to be better citizens who own school systems and city governments? Well, they could. They could in some tremendous ways they could do that. They don't, but they could. What they do, by the way, if I may have another minute on that, what they do is almost, it would be laughingly misguided if laugh fit here, and it doesn't, but a counterfeit of public input. If you ever watch a school board having public meetings and 10 minutes for public statements, it's virtually useless. First of all, they're not hearing from the public. They're hearing from a few disgruntled customers most of the time, or a few disgruntled vendors, but they're not hearing from the public, because if they heard from the public, they'd have to go out and say, wait a minute, we've got 100,000 public. What's the way in which we can see what this 100,000 public feels or values? We'll have to design something. If we wait for them to come to us, we cannot help but get a biased input. So the public meeting, which is good for exposing or being transparent to what's going on, that's great, but it is not good for public input. It is a counterfeit of public input. So we have to start looking at things like that. When you take that simple statement about that obligation, you find these things coming up as part of the discussion.
That's helpful. In the Institution of Servant, Greenleaf said, a new condition of these times is the need for a high level of trust in institutions. Without it, they cannot serve and may even lose much of their present autonomy. What is your reaction to that statement?
My reaction to that statement, the statement about, in these times we even need more trust of public institutions. They should act in such a way as to garner, as to create that trust. The first thing I thought of was petroleum companies. The first thing I thought of was banks. And I thought, with bigness, with two things, with bigness, absolutely characterizing the New World, as more and more and more it's done that. It's not new. I mean, there was Standard Oil, remember, way back when. They got broken up, and AT&T and so forth. And this is not, just like Greenleaf says, he says there was nothing wrong with the bigness by itself. He made that point parenthetically in one of his books. But it's like we're dealing with bigness, and therefore the ability to hurt as well as help a lot of people, and even people you weren't there to either hurt or help. That's happened with oil spills, for example. It's a side issue. We're not out there to spill oil. And in fact, if we spill some, we'll clean it up. Well, yeah, but if you get big enough and do hard enough things, it may not be that easy.